Hello and welcome everyone. This video is on a game that I've actually owned for a while, but as many of you will probably recognize, very often games tend to stand on the shelf for a long time, some of them never to seem to come off it. But this one did, and I'd owned it for a couple of years and I finally got to play it, and I have to admit I really enjoyed it. So this game is just a small report of a learning game that I've had, that I've played. And yeah, it's a really enjoyable game. I strongly recommend it. This one ended with 8 victory points for the Germans, as you can see here. They need at least, I believe, 10 or 11 to win. Yeah, 11 or more. So this wasn't actually enough for a win. The game is played actually either up to 5 turns or 10. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 would be the full campaign game, and 5 is the shorter version, and I played that one. Well, actually, up to a few impulses ago, the game is played in turns and impulses. Each turn consists of a variable number of impulses depending on certain die rolls and everything. I'll explain that to you in a future video when I'll do a more thorough playthrough and guide you through the stages, as some of you who may have watched more of my videos may have grown accustomed to. So the idea is for the Germans to control as many Volga riverside hexes as possible. You can actually control an area. Sorry, I said hexes, but it's actually areas if it's contested. But all Soviet-controlled areas have a control marker in them, and if there's not one in a certain area, that means it is German-controlled. So it is possible to have a contested area that is still controlled. The Germans, that is, they actually possessed this victory point area, this one, and this one as well, up to just a few impulses ago. But because a few German units were out of supply, you need to be able to trace supply back to one of the zones, which are the green rectangular shapes over there, or to the side, or to this side. Same actually goes for the Soviets, although as a house rule it makes more sense to actually have them trace supply across the Volga to either zones L or M. But officially they could even trace it to some other area. But anyway, that's just something I came across on Board Game Geek, I think. Anyway, a few German units were out of supply. Which ones? Well, these, I have to admit that I actually forgot to roll for them. Depending on a die roll, they're either reduced or eliminated, or nothing happens. That goes for these Soviet units over here as well, but it wouldn't have made any difference because it was a final turn. And yeah, okay, what might have happened is had they all been destroyed, well, the Soviets wouldn't have moved in, so it would still be German. So nothing would have changed, actually. But I attempted to restore supply to these units, and then I did some moving and everything as the Germans, and which really caused their flanks to be unguarded, and which opened up an opportunity for the Russians by crossing the river and then moving on, because you can actually move on. Movement points depend on not so much the terrain type, but more is the area free of enemy units? Is it contested? Is it adjacent to enemy units? You can actually not cross the river if the area itself is completely German controlled. So in that sense, controlled is something else than contested. So in this particular case, if you would cross the river to this area, for instance, and because there are German units next to it, you have to pay more for it. From here, you can this costs less. This would cost 1 to cross because these are here. It would actually cost 2. Then you could move on to this area, which would be 1. And the movement value points are the second numbers that you can see all the time on the counters. And in nighttime conditions, the game is actually played in daylight conditions and nighttime conditions. In nighttime conditions, the Germans get, sorry, not the Germans, the Soviets get 1 extra movement point value. In daylight conditions, the Germans get to use air support. You roll a d6, and That is the number of points you normally get to add to your attack. You can only use them on German impulses and in daylight conditions. They may actually be reduced by rubble and fortifications in the area, one each. So if you roll a 4, you would actually roll a 2 in consequence. And the Soviets have a storm group marker, which basically does the same thing, but then only during nighttime conditions. And they are actually, that roll actually becomes better if the area the attack is taking place in on a Soviet impulse, again, and during nighttime conditions in this case, if it happens in an area that contains rubble, and then you actually get a +1. That is something that's easy to forget, and I'm pretty sure that during my learning game I actually did forget it a few times, but it might make a lot of difference. So yeah, that's more or less all I have to say for now. As I said, soon I'll return with some more videos on this game, Stalingrad Verdun on the Volga, and do a more detailed playthrough and guide you through the combat process, the movement processes, etc. It is actually on Kickstarter again, slightly adjusted edition. I believe it doesn't have a mounted map such as this one, but it does come with a double-sided map, and one half of it is winter. And a few more things. I'm actually not going to buy it because I already own this version, and I'm quite happy with it. And there's no room on my shelf anyway, and much of the shelf, as I said at the beginning of this video, is already being taken up by games that I do own and that I haven't actually had time to play. But again, I'm very glad that I finally picked this one off the shelf and gave it a go, and very glad I did it because it's really a great game. Fantastic rulebook also, I might add. Of course, in all games there are always a few questions that pop up, and this one is no different, but unlike in many other ones, usually it tends to be something that I'm personally not very sure about. But it is actually often, not always, but often clearly stated in the rules, and upon rereading it, upon actually playing the game, many things do start falling into place and make a lot of sense. So again, see you perhaps on one of my future videos on Stalingrad Verdun on the Volga, and I hope you've enjoyed this one for now. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.